Hello everybody, welcome back to another video, and today we are once again going to be going over Hurricane Dorian. Now, we are also going to be going over a new system that has formed in the Gulf of Mexico. We've been watching it for a few days, and now it's called Tropical Storm Fernand. This doesn't look like a huge threat to the U.S. It could affect us a little bit, but like Texas possibly, but really nothing too concerning for the U.S. But it is going for northern Mexico, near Texas. So I did kind of want to cover that today, just very briefly. But I will be covering Dorian and Fernand. I'm going to be doing Fernand first. I will down in the description. I will put when I start covering Dorian if you just want to skip to that, or if you want to watch the whole thing, that'd really be appreciated. But down in the description is the time that I'm starting my Dorian coverage, which has actually changed quite a bit since yesterday. So let's go ahead and get into Fernand. Okay, if you do go on to enjoy today's video, consider subscribing and leaving a like down below. And let's go ahead and get into it. So you can see right here, Tropical Storm Fernand. Now, this is in the Western Gulf, around Mexico. You can definitely see it. And it's over water right now. We're not expecting it to get too intense. We're expecting somewhere around a tropical storm. So somewhere in between around 40 to 73 mile per hour winds, or 39 to 73 as you can see down here. And that's really all we're expecting. Not expecting a hurricane since it is going to be making landfall tomorrow night. But we are expecting a tropical storm. We're going to have to see how intense the tropical storm does get, but we will see some impacts, possible rain impacts, so of course wind impacts, but nothing too crazy. But you can see we do have a tropical storm warning in effect for parts of northern Mexico right here. I will cover cities in a little bit, but you can see that's what we're expecting. A landfall by tomorrow. Should be a tropical storm by tomorrow morning, if not already. It's actually already a tropical storm right now, so I really don't know why their cone is like this, but it's a tropical storm right now, and it should remain like that until it makes landfall tomorrow night. And then it should turn into a tropical depression on your Thursday morning after landfall, or maybe even sooner. Okay, let's go ahead and move on to the spaghetti model. So we're going to go ahead and go over towards Mexico, and you can see right here, this is kind of what we are looking at. So you can see how we do have a pretty good area of where we could make landfall. There's a little bit of a uncertainty. I wouldn't say it's a huge uncertainty because this is really close to landfall. But you can see how most of the models do some at landfall. Most of them are agreeing on a landfall somewhere around here. So if we were to look where this could make landfall, or around where it could, that could be anywhere from San Fernando. That's a little weird because Fernand is the name of the storm. So anywhere from San Fernando, Abasolo. You can see in some of these areas, I can't really read this. But you can see, where you are if you're from Mexico and watching this, or if you just know a spot in Mexico that you like going to, if you just want to see where it is making landfall. But it should make landfall really close to Texas. You can see Texas starts around here, and we have northern Mexico right here. So where that blue dot is where we should be making landfall. Anywhere along this blue line right now is where we are expecting the landfall. This is saying 45 mile per hour winds is what it should be. I think we could go a little bit more intense than that at landfall, but we will definitely have to see. Monterey, we could be seeing some impacts. Saltillo, we will see some impacts, areas like that. So that's what we're expecting with landfall. Now, if we were to quickly go ahead and move on to windy.com, we're going to look at the rain and thunder. We're actually going to look at radar and satellite right now. And you can see right now, it is bringing quite a bit of rain. It's in the Gulf. It has a lot of moisture. So right now, we are already seeing the moisture move in. And you can see it's across parts of Matamoros, parts of southern Texas, very southern Texas. So we are seeing some moisture moving in across some parts of southern Texas. San Fernando, it's getting in there. You can see that's kind of where we're seeing this Reynosa. We're seeing a shower right now. And if you look at the satellite, you can see pretty good system. Not too good put together, but it's covering a wide area. So it's not a small system, but it doesn't have very bad wind impacts, but some rain impacts. You can see how this rain does come throughout tonight into tomorrow morning, and you can see how some of them will be intense and they could be prolonged, some prolonged rain events. And you can see how they kind of do move out by your Thursday night, and then it's a little scattered, but the moisture stays a little bit together, and it really doesn't do much. except it stays across Mexico for a little while. And you can see some of the moisture could get up into the U.S., but nothing. We're not expecting much from this in the U.S. We're just kind of expecting a Mexico landfall, and that's kind of all. So if we were to look at your rain accumulation, you can see how some areas we could be getting quite a bit of rain. Now, you can see we do have some mountainous regions here. So usually when you have the mountainous regions, that moisture will ride up the mountains, and we'll kind of, we'll get more to come down. So, that's kind of how it is. So we'll see more. We usually see way more rain across the mountains, and you can see once we get across the mountains, a lot of the storm is weakened. So that is the best part about the mountains. If you're beyond those mountains, you're kind of out of it, and you're kind of spared just because those mountains took all the moisture from the storm, kind of just got rid of it. So that's why you're seeing so much rain there. Now you can see across the coastline, across here, you can see anywhere from 5 inches in some areas, and then anywhere around 1 or 2 inches. Very southern Texas, maybe picking up about an inch or two of rain. That's not too bad. That's good. And not flooding rain, which is really good. Just a good soaker, and it's nothing too bad. You can see Monterey about 6 inches. Along the mountains, we're averaging 6 to 10 inches, maybe some isolated spots of more. And you can see how they, along these mountains, around 6 to 10 inches. Then as we move west of the mountains near El Salvador, around there, you can see we do have around 1 to 3 inches of rain, just because it kind of weakened it. San Fernando, about 3 inches. We are already seeing some rain over here, so this is on top of that rain. So any rain you have saw, this is this is on top of this. So this is our latest model run. So that's kind of what we're looking at. And you see, if we were to quickly move on to wind gusts, we could see some intense wind gusts. Nothing too crazy. You can see somewhere around 40-mile-per-hour wind gusts. This is giving. I do definitely think we will see higher ones, especially across the mountains. We could see some fairly good wind gusts. Really, if you live in those mountains is where we'll be seeing the most impacts across northern Mexico. Really, if you're along the coast, you will definitely get rain and winds, but I think the worst of our impacts will be along those mountains. And then west of those mountains, it kind of breaks up for you, and you're not getting it as bad. You're still getting some, but nothing too terrible. Okay, we're going to go ahead and move on to Dorian. So you saw Fernand, pretty good tropical storm. It's not really going to do much. It's going to be out of here pretty soon. And that's pretty much all we're going to be seeing from this system, just hitting Mexico. So if we were to move on to Hurricane Dorian, we're going to go ahead and go back to the National Hurricane Center, and you can see Dorian is very intense still, so I will be covering this for quite a bit. This may be a longer part of the video than Fernand, but, this is our biggest threat to America right now, and it's happening right now. So you can see, finally, it is moving out of the Bahamas. We're at 5 miles an hour. That is really good improvement. Yesterday it was stationary. It was going 1 mile an hour. And then starting last night to late this morning, it was just stationary. And it finally started moving this morning because we have a high pressure over here that is pushing the storm a little bit east. Then we have a high pressure down here that is pushing this north. And you can kind of see that's what we're seeing. And then we do have a trough, or whatever you want to call it, that will be moving this east really quickly. And that's kind of why the storm really does pick up. We have all these factors around it that are just going to be pushing it northeast, which is really good for a lot of us. Now, we will still stay fairly slow until we get to the Georgia, maybe southern South Carolina shoreline, and the state line or shore, whatever you want to say. And once we get to South Carolina and North Carolina, it starts to speed up, and then it speeds up quite a bit. So, in 1 day, in 2 days, we could be from North Carolina to parts of Nova Scotia or Newfoundland as a post-tropical storm, or maybe a post-tropical hurricane, post-tropical cyclone. There we go, sorry. I just can't talk. And you can see how right now we're at 110 miles an hour, moving northwest at 5 miles an hour. So we do have that northwestern turn we were anticipating. And you can see we do have hurricane warnings across the Florida coast and a lot of the Florida east coast. And you can see how those hurricane warnings do extend into parts of central and southern coastal parts of South Carolina. Also along the Georgia coastline and parts of Hilton Head, South Carolina, we are seeing our tropical storm warnings. Not as bad there, kind of just because, you're not up front and center. That coastline, it kind of dips back a little bit. And you can see how we do have hurricane watches across all the North Carolina coastline. Also into parts of near Myrtle Beach in South Carolina right there. So that's kind of what we're seeing. Myrtle Beach is somewhere around here. I think, yeah, it is. So that's kind of what we're expecting. Those will turn into hurricane warnings or tropical storm warnings as we do move forward. If it was to take a track like this, it'd probably be tropical storm warnings. And if it takes this track like we're thinking, they'll most likely turn into hurricane warnings probably in the next day, because we do have to get close before we put a warning out. So that's kind of why it's just a watch right now. But you will see hurricane conditions most likely anywhere in those pinks and those reds anytime this week. And sooner in those reds, pretty much by your Wednesday and Thursday, we should be seeing those hurricane impacts, especially across the east coast of Florida. We're already seeing them. Now, by your 8 p.m. Wednesday, we should be getting near the Georgia coastline. Now, you can see in the Georgia coastline, we do have that tropical storm warning, but we also do have that hurricane watch in place. So pretty much the reason they do have this hurricane watch in place is if this gets close, it's more close than we do think. Like if it was to take a track like this, those will be turned into hurricane warnings. So with our track right now, it's remaining enough off coast that we should just see tropical storm conditions, but if it was to move a little bit more west, we would be seeing hurricane conditions, and we turn that into a hurricane warning instead. So there still is the possibility we could be seeing hurricane impacts across coastal Georgia, but right now we're just expecting tropical storm conditions, which is still bad. When I say just that, I'm just saying compared to other spots. But Georgia, you're still going to be pretty good impacts. So we will be seeing the rain, the winds, everything that does come with the system. So just don't look at tropical storm hurricane, because it'll still be pretty bad. And you can see how by your Thursday, this moves on to the South Carolina coastline. So if you're anywhere from, let's say, Hilton Head to Charleston to Myrtle Beach, anywhere across there, we'll be seeing hurricane conditions, maybe tropical storm conditions. As we move into Hilton Head, we will to see. And you can see as we get into your Friday, or late Thursday night and your Friday morning, we could, and most likely will be expecting hurricane conditions across North Carolina and maybe Myrtle Beach. So Myrtle Beach, you might be a little later than all the other coastline just because you're so close to North Carolina. So that's your timing for that. Now, as we do move into your 8 a.m. Saturday, it does move north really quickly. You can see parts of the northeast coast are there, but I'm not expecting anything off of that. I'm pretty sure it's part of the northeast coast. I don't really know. I think Nantucket, but I could be extremely wrong. But I think that's Nantucket. I could be wrong. But you can see how it's expected to just take a track like this right now. So we're not expecting very bad impacts across the northeast, but we could see some surf impacts, possible wind gusts, but really nothing too intense, because once we get these storms to weaken, usually the wind field does get out a little bit, so this could be its wind field. So we could see some tropical storm force gust across parts of the coastal areas of Massachusetts, Rhode Island, stuff like that. So that's kind of all we're going to see. And you can see maybe even Maine, we could get some, little bit of a surf impact, but really nothing else. And you can see as we move into Nova Scotia, we could expect some tropical storm conditions, maybe hurricane conditions, if we move this a little bit more west. And then as we move into Newfoundland, we should expect hurricane conditions. This will be a post-tropical cyclone, but we still are expecting hurricane conditions either way. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on into the wind speed probabilities. You can see anywhere in those reds and those pinks and oranges is where we have our greatest chance of tropical storm force winds. You can see across parts of Mexico where Fernand is, we do have around 30 to 40 chance, and maybe even 50. So yeah, that's what we're seeing compared to this. And you can see it's really in those reds are the North Carolina coast, South Carolina coast, and then those oranges are the Florida coast and the Georgia coast. And also, some of those greens do extend all the way out to the Appalachian Mountains into parts of the northeast. But you can see most of our impact should be anywhere across here when it comes to this system. So if you're anywhere across where I just circled, you should be watching out for this system in the coming days, or just today, really, in some of these areas. It's already hitting today. And if we were to look at your hurricane speed probability, probably our best probability would be across the South Carolina or North Carolina coast, but should not be expecting terrible hurricane impacts, but there still are possible with those hurricane wind speeds, even across Nova Scotia and Newfoundland, if this does keep up with that, and if it does, kind of stay as a hurricane. Now, if we were to look at the rainfall, you can see how this rainfall has been upped a little bit in some parts of the southeast coast. And you can see across parts of the eastern coast of Florida, wherever we do see our rain, it should be anywhere from about 2 to 6 inches, maybe a little bit more, maybe a little bit less. That's kind of just what we're seeing there. And that yellow is where we should see our greatest in Florida. And now as we move into the Georgia coastline, anywhere from 4 to 6 inches, maybe a little bit more. And you can see across the South Carolina coastline, 6 to 10 inches. And as we move a little bit more inland around Conway, anywhere about 4 to 6 inches, or maybe just a little bit more. And as we move across the North Carolina coastline, some areas could be seeing 10 to 15 inches of rain, where it could make a landfall across here is where we'll see that possibly. This is just where we could see a foot of rain. And you can see as we move across other parts of the North Carolina coastline, anywhere from 6 to 10 inches, and then as we move a little bit inland, 4 to 6, and then as we move a little more inland towards around the coastal plains, you can see that's around 2 to 4 inches. And once we get near the Raleigh area, maybe 1 inch or less, maybe 2 inches, but I'm not going to push it, maybe less than 1 inch as you move into Raleigh right there. And you can see flash flooding potential over the next 3 days. We have a moderate chance across the northeastern coast, the northern coast of Georgia, all of the South Carolina coast, and most of the North Carolina coast. We do have a chance for flash flooding. If you're anywhere in these colors, you do have a chance for flash flooding, but our greatest chance right now is in that red. I would expect some of those pinks as we do get into tomorrow, as we get into probably our 4th day. So that's kind of what we're seeing. I do expect a high chance of flash flooding across parts of the Carolinas, wherever you would see that, across parts of the coastal Carolinas. Maybe across here is where we could be expecting it, but we'll have to see how that does play out. Okay, let's go ahead and look at one more thing, the storm surge on this. You can see how the storm surge, we should be expecting quite a bit. So storm surge is just when you get the ocean to come in, and this is just pretty much how many feet you do get to come in of the ocean. So as we move into parts, I'm just gonna go to the worst of it first. And you can see if you're around the Myrtle Beach area or Murrells Inlet possibly, or that area, I'm very familiar with that area. I mean, it's not like I live here, but I'm very familiar, and I know a lot of people are. But you can see across here, we could be seeing anywhere from 2 to 4 feet, or maybe even 3 to 6 feet of storm surge. So you can see how this could be really bad around your Georgetown area. You can see how it is kind of like that, and you can see Murrells Inlet. You could be a little bit saved, but we'll have to see. And you can see anywhere, some of those there are some specks of red where we could be seeing 9 feet of storm surge, which is pretty bad. I don't know who's the tallest person. Let's look how tall the tallest person is. I'm just really curious right now. So if we were to look at that, they're probably, I'm not going to look. Oh, 8 feet. That's what it says. I bet there's someone taller than that. So it could be taller than the tallest person on the earth. So, that's kind of what we're looking at when it comes to storm surge. North Myrtle Beach, anywhere from 3 to 6 storm surge as we move into your coastal areas. As we move into your North Carolina area, anywhere generally 2 to 4 feet of storm surges are average. Moving inland towards Wilmington, 1 to 3 possibly, and you can see some areas a little bit more around your 2 to 4, maybe even 3 to 6. And you can see that trend pretty much just keep going until we get to Emerald Isle, Atlantic Beach, into some of the Barrier Islands. Also, as we move into Belhaven or across here, Washington, this area could flood pretty bad. You can see around the Tar River, Chocowinty Bay, River Road, Washington Park, Washington, Grimsland, Chocowinty. That's kind of what we're looking. So pretty much across the Pamlico River, we could be seeing some storm surge flooding for anywhere from 3 to 6 feet. And the same thing across Belhaven. And as we move into parts of northern coastal of North Carolina, you can see how it's kind of the same deal. It's really where we get those rivers or whatever to come in is where we could be seeing the most of our storm surge. Just kind of where we get that water to come inland is kind of where we're seeing the most across coastal North Carolina. Now, if we look at the spaghetti models of where it's going to go, we have a really good idea now. I just do want to show you. I know I've showed people this a lot lately, But if we were to look at it, you can see we are expecting it to move somewhere through here. You can see right now it should stay out in the ocean for a while. We aren't most likely going to see an intensification now. We could, if it is possible, but right now it's looking like we should stay around the same or weaken a little even. But you can see how this is most likely going to make landfall across parts of North Carolina, or it could get really close to making landfall and it not, which is definitely a possibility. So there is a chance we could not see landfall at all with this system across the southeast coast. That is a very good chance. It could remain right off the North Carolina coast, which is very possible. A South Carolina or Georgia landfall is not looking very likely at all. North Carolina is where we should see our landfall. If we even do see one, then you see it does move into Nova Scotia and then Newfoundland as we get a little bit more up. Now, if we were to look at your windy.com, we have been looking at this quite a bit this whole week, maybe even a week and a half. And you can see how the worst of our rains are still towards the northern Bahamas. It's finally starting to move out at 5 miles an hour northwest, so it's moving generally this area, or maybe even here. You can see that's what we are seeing, and you can see the worst of the rains are right off the Florida coast, right north of the Bahamas. So the worst of the impacts are finally starting to move away, which is really good. You can see on the satellite imagery, everything's starting to move away, and we are kind of starting to see an eye come back. You can see how there was really no eye today, and you can see how there's trying to start to form another eye, which is a sign we could be seeing intensification again. So we will definitely have to see. Now you can see as we move into later tomorrow, you can see some parts of Florida, coastal Florida, we are still seeing some rain. Flash flooding is possible, and you can see the same story across the Georgia coast on your Wednesday night and Thursday morning. Now as we get across the South Carolina coast on your Thursday morning, throughout the day, we are going to be seeing quite a bit of rain from maybe even Savannah, Georgia, Hilton Head, Charleston, Myrtle Beach. We're seeing it there. And to your Thursday, pretty much all day Thursday, we're seeing these rains. The worst of them could be right offshore, but I am expecting some really bad rains to come in. And you can see once we get into your Thursday night, they're across Myrtle Beach still, and then Wilmington, we're still seeing them, and Havelock, Fayetteville, Greenville, Avon. Into your Friday, it moves across Havelock, the biggest part of it, and then it spreads across Greenville, Virginia Beach, Kitty Hawk, Roanoke Rapids, and you can see by your Friday it starts to move offshore. But before it does move offshore, you can see Virginia Beach get hit pretty hard with really heavy rainfall. It could be the worst part of the storm over you by your Friday afternoon into your night. And you can see how it does move off very quickly, and by your Saturday it should be out of the southeast and mid-Atlantic's hand. And we could be seeing some rain from this across parts of the Maine coast. Actually the Maine coast, like Maine, not like the main part of a coast, but Maine, across parts of the Maine coast. And you can see how we are seeing some of this rain moving into parts of the Massachusetts coast, Yarmouth, the Nantucket area right here. Oh, I was right earlier. That was Nantucket. And you can see how that's kind of just how that is. We could see some rain brushing by. Then it should make landfall on Saturday across Nova Scotia possibly, and then make another landfall possibly across Newfoundland. And then maybe even bring some rain and snow to parts of Newfoundland. Just a mix, like a wintry mix and stuff like that. And you can see by your Monday, keeps moving, brings some snow to Greenland, brings some snow to Iceland after a while, and it just goes a lot of places. It's going to be going a lot of places, the system, bringing a lot of moisture to a lot of areas. Now you can see by your 12th, it's gone, but we do look back into the Atlantic. Now, you can kind of see where my concern is. If you already do see it, I think many people do. We have these two tropical systems out in here by the 12th. Now, one of these is looking like it definitely will form. Now, these two, I do think will happen. So, there is the possibility that we could see these take the same track and make two landfalls in the same spot. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but it definitely is a possibility. So, we are going to have to be watching. And you can see we already do have one off the coast of Africa that is about to form. It has a really good chance. I actually don't know if it's already formed. It could have. Let's take a look. I think it's still an invest. Yeah, still an invest. It has a 90% chance over the next 2 days and the next 5 days. So, you'll see how that one really doesn't do us much. You can see how it just keeps going. It just pretty much is out in the Atlantic the whole time of its life, and you can see how it's really not causing anyone too many problems right now, is we're not really seeing anything happening. I'm just really wanting to cover everything we're seeing in the tropics right now, and you can see how there's one that we are watching right here, southeast of Bermuda. I'm just going to cover this one really quick. It's bringing Bermuda rains and, you know, some powerful wind, not really powerful, but some wind gusts. And you can see how this is going to move northeast. It most likely will form into something tropical. It definitely could. And then you can see it gets into less favorable waters, and it kind of gets pulled away by Dorian too. Now, I'm not sure if this is pulling Dorian or if Dorian's pushing it. I don't know if either is even connected with each other, but we will definitely have to see. And you can see how this really doesn't do any threat to land at all, so really nothing to worry about there. And that's all we're really looking at. Really nothing too much to worry about. Now, remember that trough I said earlier? This is that trough I was talking about. So you'll see how this does move this system pretty far east. You'll see how it kind of just pushes off with it. And, you know, it does. You'll see it, how it does push it off. So that's kind of what we're seeing with that. And, you know, there's a lot of factors that are going into this. I just showed you a lot of factors earlier on in the video of why is everything going where it is, and that's why. So I do hope y'all enjoyed today's video. If you did, consider subscribing and leaving a like down below, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Have an amazing